The UFC heads to the Apex this weekend where Steve Garcia takes on David Onama, and it's going to be a featherweight banger. And before I give you my full card prediction, breakdown, bets, and more, if you want to unlock my bets, you want to unlock Angelo's bets, Jacob from We Want Picks bets, Adam's articles, and more, sign up in the link in the description of this video. It is wewantpicks.com/betsam, code BetSam for 10% off. It's only $10 per month. What are you waiting for? Let's bust into the fights. The first fight to break into this card is going to be Alencar taking on Ariane Carnelossi in the women's strawweight division. And at first appearance for this, I was considering this matchup for one of my underdog opportunities. You look at Ariane Carnelossi, she is physically strong, great muscle structure. She is aggressive in the striking, where we know that Alencar has failed if you have watched any of her previous footage and her previous UFC bouts. However, Ariane Carnelossi, the one thing that stood out to me is that her takedown defense is poor. You could see that she isn't able to get up and does play jiu-jitsu off of her back. So I'm going to lean towards Alencar because we've seen her be an absolute blanket over fighters with similar stylistic matchups. In her last bout against Vanessa Demopoulos, you could see Alencar was incredibly all over her as far as control time goes. And I think against Ariane Carnelossi here, she's only going to need 1 or 2 takedowns. This is a battle of grappler versus generalist, I will say, because Ariane Carnelossi, I'm not even going to, determine her as a striker. She has a 15-3 record, so you would assume that she's got the better overall experience here. But I actually like what I see from Alencar. And when I broke down this fight, initially I was thinking it's women's strawweight. It's going to be, a bit of a unclear decision. After going through the tape, I think this is Torres Finney versus somebody outside the top 15. I think it's just going to be a control fest with some striking involved. It's not going to be Alexander Volkov versus Charlton Almeida, where people are coming for my head for that one. People are DMing me. There's a lot of comments, a lot of controversy, a lot of hate. And, people think that Volkov won that fight clearly. And if you're ignoring control time as scoring criteria, then I agree with you. But, what I've watched historically is that you see fights where the control time matters. So I try to base my predictions over past proceedings, and it's very unclear where the judges are going to go with a bunch of these fights where control time is racked up. However, in this fight, the reason why I think that Alencar is going to look like a lock in here is because I think that she's going to rack up little rabbit punches, little strikes while she is on top. And I think she's going to have submission attempts as well. So I think Alencar wins this fight either via submission or decision. I'd lean towards decision because she is tiny and mighty. It says 5'1". I think she's actually about 5 foot tall. She's very small and stout for the division. So is Ariane Carnelossi. A couple of nuggets here, but one of them's going to get the better control time. However, I will caution people, Alencar's striking is incredibly suspect and lackluster. I just don't think it's going to matter due to the fact that Carnelossi is most likely going to get taken down. And the energy exchange from that should lead to her just being drowned with control time, with ground strikes, with submission attempts. And I think the overall positional awareness from Alencar here will just be far too much for Ariane Carnelossi to deal with. The pick is going to be Alencar. And my confidence level on this is actually quite high. I'm going to go Alencar to win this fight by either submission or decision. Then we have Phil Rowe taking on Seok Young Ko in the welterweight division. And this is about that there's going to be a very sizable size difference, sizable size difference. It is 5'10" Seok Young Ko from Korea taking on the 6'3" Philip Rowe. And the height difference, obviously 5 inches, is dramatic. But where you're going to see that large reach difference is the reach. It's 9.5 inches in difference there in the reach here between Seok Young Ko and Phil Rowe. And I think that Philip Rowe, people are going to be picking him based off of the fact that he is a good boxer. He does have a tremendous reach advantage. However, I will point out to you, he is not that good at using it, especially early on in fights. I think that Seok Young Ko here has a grappling edge. We saw him out last time out against Oban Elliott and in his fight against Igor Cavalcanti display pretty dominant grappling and also very good positional awareness and that overall strength. I think this guy is 5'10", but he is every bit a welterweight. I think that this guy has a lot of strength in his frame. He's got a lot of confidence, and as long as he remains conscious, and I do say remains conscious because in both of his losses, he was finished up, I do believe, by knockout. I think that he should be able to get the better of Phil Rowe here. I'm going to be leaning towards Seok Young Ko winning a damage-based decision with some takedowns mixed in. However, I will say that he is live to catch a knockout because when you watch Phil Rowe versus Ange Lusa, this guy does get connected on by people with lesser fighting ability than is Seok Young Ko. However, the suspect chin is still up in the air with knowing that Shakyunko's losses both come by way of knockout. We saw Phil Rowe rally late in his last matchup there against Angelusa for that third round KO, so we know that he can carry the power and the ability to find a finish late in his fights. We've seen it happen actually multiple times. Bit of a Neil Magny effect as well as a Neil Magny build here. But I don't think it's going to be here for him. I think Shakyunko is going to get it done, and I expect him to win this fight by either decision or knockout. I would lean towards a decision, though, with Phil Rowe being a bit of a veteran. So give me Shakyunko. Confidence level here, about a medium, medium confidence. Then we have Ellis Deleon taking on Montserrat Ruiz. Guys, this is the first leg of the Slam of the Week, and the side that I'm going with is Ellis Deleon. And I will admit, a 10-7 record is absolutely ugly, but the performance that she had last time out really makes me believe that in this matchup here, it's not even going to be competitive, let alone close. I think that Ellis Deleon is a much bigger body. We see Montserrat Ruiz coming in at 5 foot. She's a bit nuggety, and it's not 5 foot with a lot of muscle on there. It's just bulk. She's not exactly in the best shape of her life, and I think we're going to see that here. Ellis Deleon, on the other side, did look the best shape of her UFC career, at the very least, in her last outing. And after notching that first UFC W, I expect her to come in here really thinking that she belongs. And one thing I will say is, if you don't know this about Ellis Deleon, is that she does have an OnlyFans. She has a TikTok. She's got a big social media following. I think she's closing in on like 1 million followers or something. Ellis Deleon is developing a career outside of the UFC that is going to be financially sustainable and stable. However, she is a tough SOB. She wants to get in here and get after it. You can tell by her fight style. She's not necessarily the most technically proficient in the striking, but she will put her head on the center line and just get after it. She's not chinny. She is durable, and I expect her to go out here, take anything that Montserrat Ruiz gives her in the striking, and deal at least double. And when it comes to the grappling department, I don't think Montserrat Ruiz is going to get even a single takedown. And if she does, I expect Ellis Deleon to pop right back up and to be able to get back in there into the striking. And I could even see Ellis Deleon getting an offensive takedown or cage control of her own. She's the bigger body. I think that she's the better athlete. And we've seen Montserrat Ruiz finished up multiple times now. I'm going to say that Ellis Deleon wins this fight inside the distance. I think it's going to come down to a battle of wills here. And Ellis Deleon is just going to really want this significantly more. As long as she makes the weight cut perfectly fine, which I expect her to. She's a professional. Then I expect her to turn up here and put an absolute beating on Montserrat Ruiz, and she's leg 1 of Slam of the Week. High confidence pick, in case that wasn't obvious. Then we have Ketlin Vieira taking on Norma Dumont. This is a battle of 2 women's bantamweights that I have bet on and been quite fruitful, with. They're bigger bodies, 5'8" and 5'7". They fill out this frame very nicely. Ketlin Vieira wins her fights with either big round-changing shots or control time and grappling prowess. On the other side here, Norma Dumont has made a career off of being active in the striking and getting timely takedowns when necessary. In her last outing there against Irina Aldana, she was dotting up Aldana to no end and led a pretty bloody canvas where she beat the absolute brakes off of Irina Aldana, and her strike count was through the roof. In this matchup here, I expect Norma Dumont to be able to do more of the same and stop enough takedowns. And I say enough because I could see Ketlin Vieira getting 1 or maybe even 2 takedowns. But I think it's going to be a damage-based decision where Norma Dumont gets a cut, gets some blood coming out of Ketlin Vieira with a death by 1,000 cuts, multiple strikes, popping the jab and moving. I'm taking Norma Dumont here, medium confidence, and with the line being relatively close, I see a lot of value on Norma Dumont's name. Then we have Dante Johnson taking on Cedric Dumas. Guys, I got Dante Johnson just over a minus 250 favorite here. He is now pushing towards minus 300 on most sports books, and I still think that his price is warranted. And the reason being is it's got nothing to do with technique. It's got nothing to do with experience. You look at this individual, what do you see? You see power, you see willingness to throw down, and you see an intimidating presence. Is listed at 6 foot here. I think he's closer to 5'9", 5'10". I don't believe he's 5'8", which he's been listed at some other books, but I think that he's closer to a 5'9", 5'10". Sometimes in those regional shows, they're not giving you the right height here. He will be the smaller man as far as the height goes against Cedric Dumas, But make no mistake, this man is going to look like a mammoth in there. He's going to get after Cedric Dumas, and we've already seen Cedric does not like getting hit. In his last match against Mikhail Olenjacek, and I say last match because even though he went out there against Zachary Ruiz, that fight didn't really take place. He got kicked in the junk. It was so early on in the fight, we didn't really get to see much going on from either opponent there. So I'm going to reference Cedric Dumas' last fight, not his last outing, as his fight against Mikhail Olenjacek, where he looked absolutely atrocious, got hunted down by Mikhail Olenjacek, and folded to a shot that I really think wasn't fight-ending, but he allowed it to be fight-ending by curling up on his back and getting wailed on. And I expect Dontae Johnson to be able to do more of the same, but with more fight-ending capability. I think Dontae Johnson hits incredibly hard, and I think that as far as raw power goes, I think he's got Mikhail Olenjacek beat pillar to post. This dude throws in combination. He used to be 250 pounds. He's now going to step on at 185 pounds, and I expect him to make the weight easily. He's kind of like a Jared Cannonier type of transition here. Used to be a big fella. He's fell in love with the sport, and he is working his fucking ass off. Give me Dontae Johnson to win this fight by round 1 finish. I'm going to lean towards knockout because he's got 6 KOs. 6 KOs in round 1. Cedric Dumas doesn't stand out to me as somebody who's going to be able to lengthen this. I think he's going to get hit with a big shot early, and he's going to pack his bags, go home, and fuck off out of the UFC. Obviously, if this pussy gets eye-poked or nut shots, he's going to look for a way out of this fight because he has no heart whatsoever. Give me Dontae Johnson, round 1 finish, high confidence. Then we have Timmy Cuamba taking on Chang Ho Lee. And this is my official underdog opportunity. I'm riding with Chang Ho Lee, the Korean Khabib. And I will tell you why. Timothy Cuamba is coming down in weight here to the 135-pound division. I think it's a mark of desperation. He's not been able to put it together in his short notice bout at lightweight. He's come down to featherweight, which is his natural weight class. Hasn't put it together there either. Now he's coming down here to 135. I think he's having an identity crisis, and I think he's looking for physical advantages where he's not going to find them. Chang Ho Lee is an all-action grappler and striker. He is like a Marab. He is like a Bilal Muhammad. He is just going to get after it. He is a cardio demon that if he gets on top of you, his ground and pound is relentless, but he will not punch himself out. And what I mean by that is if he gets on top of you in an advantageous position, he will throw 40, 50 strikes. But when you pop right back up, it's the same game plan. A few strikes into a takedown attempt. And even if he doesn't get it, you know what's coming behind it? Another takedown attempt. He will hang out in the clinch and throw dirty boxing strikes, uppercuts to the chin, knees to the body, all the rest of it. I like Chang Ho Lee in the spot here. I don't really understand why Timothy Cuamba is favored, but to play devil's advocate, I will say Timmy Cuamba, better boxing, cleaner footwork, better striking overall, and a better athlete, but I don't think it's going to matter here. Some of these guys just have heart, willpower, and cardio in droves, and that's what I think we're going to see out of Chang Ho Lee here. I think he finds a finish over Timothy Cuamba either late in round 2 or round 3. Then we have Billy Elkana versus Kevin Christian. And I will say that this is probably one of the lowest level matchups that we're going to see in the light heavyweight division for some time to come. Kevin Christian, while he is enormous at 6'7", I have watched the tape on this guy, sloppy as hell, and even in his Contender Series victory, he spent far too long off of his back playing that jiu-jitsu bullshit game for me to want to pick him here. But I'm also not impressed with what Billy Elkana has done. Despite beating Ibo Aslan in his last matchup here, I think it was less about how good Billy Elkana looked and how absolutely atrocious, we saw Ibo Aslan look once he was extended and not throwing with KO finishing, ending shots in that fight. It was a lackluster performance from both parties, and I don't really look into that and see Billy Elkana as some kind of contender here. For me, I'm personally leaving this fight entirely alone. I would lead towards Billy Elkana winning a damage-based decision off the striking, but that's really all that I would leave it down to. So I'm going to say Billy Elkana wins this fight with the striking, and Kevin Christian is going to just look lackluster in here. That's going to be my official prediction. But make no mistake, low-level fight and low-level confidence on that pick. Then we have Alan Nascimento taking on Cody Durden. And this is a matchup here where Alan Nascimento is a jiu-jitsu practitioner who has a low takedown defense, but is looking improved. And this is the shortest amount of time that we're going to see him between fights. Usually this guy has long layoffs and, there's long layoffs with large question marks. When somebody isn't fighting for a year and a half, 2 years, you start to wonder, what kind of condition are they in? What's held them back? Was it injuries? Are they dedicated to their training? I think the fact that we're seeing Nascimento in close succession to his last bout, where he defeated João Filho, to book now against Cody Durden, is a very promising sign. And I like the activity here in the year 2025 for Nascimento. It's not enormous. It's not Kevin Holland, but it's more than we were seeing out of him. And I think it's a step in the right direction. On the other side here, I don't like that we're seeing Cody Durden because he just got finished up in his last outing against Jose Ochoa. I think if either of these gentlemen were to come in here compromise from the short time turnaround between their last bouts, it's definitely Cody Durden. Cody Durden was once a prospect that had good cardio. Now he's coming in here, somebody that's got questionable durability. So I'm taking Nascimento in here. And even though he is a sizable favorite, I think that with the career trajectories, it's Nascimento all day here. I think he's going to be able to contend in the grappling, and he might even find a submission over Cody Durden, as Durden is looking to get finished up in most of his losses recently. The value here is going to be on Nascimento. Medium level confidence. Let's move on. We then have Charles Radtke taking on Daniel Frunza. And guys, I don't think this is a fight that matters whatsoever for the welterweight division, but I think this is going to be a banger. You look at Daniel Frunza in his last matchup, you could see that he got knocked down multiple times by Reese McGee. Face was all busted open. He was willing to continue. This guy is an absolute banger, and if you go back and watch his regional fights, he gets after it. On the other side here, Charles Radtke, Chuck Buffalo, he kind of fell in love with his striking, but I wish that I could trust him to grapple here because I think it's a much easier path to victory. I think he could take down Daniel Frunza and find a way to his neck and a rear naked choke with relative ease, but I expect him to hang out for a striking match because he's fallen in love with throwing that left hook and trying to KO people. He's also got a bit of a bravado about him, so I expect him to believe in his striking here against Daniel Frunza. Ultimately, I'm going to say this fight does not go the distance, and I expect it to end sometime in the second round because I imagine both of these gentlemen are just going to get after it. They both have big KO power. They're both going to go out there and throw an exchange. However, if Charles Radtke does commit to a game plan evolved around his takedowns, I expect them to find a rear naked choke as well. I'm going to pick Charles Radtke inside the distance. It's going to be my official pick. I don't know about if I'm going to reach the betting line on this one, but give me Chuck Buffalo to go out here and defeat Daniel Frunza. Then we have Isaac Dulgarian taking on Yadir Delville. And it says 7-1 here. Let's make no mistake. He defeated Christian Rodriguez. That was a judging blunder. Yadir Delville, 9-0 as well. I'm going to treat this like two undefeated prospects going at it. Isaac Dulgarian is a hurricane in the first round. He gets after people. His wrestling is top tier. His control is good. And he lands vicious ground and pound and hunts for necks like nobody's business. On the other side here, we have seen Yadir Delville look dangerous with guillotine. We've seen him be dangerous in his striking as well. This is a matchup here that has high trajectory for both of their careers. And we're getting two people in the early stage of their career, but both while they're primed up and ready to rock. I think this is a featherweight banger, and I'm excited to see either of these gentlemen get after it. I think that they can both go on and have, heightened success inside of the UFC, and probably both crack the top 15 at some point as well. I'm expecting both of these gentlemen to have a fruitful career outside of this one, but I'm going to say that Isaac Dulgarian is the value side here, and I'm going to tell you why on a bit of a different angle. I think he goes out here and smashes Yadir Delville or controls him for the majority of round one. So I think Isaac Dulgarian is a great bet in round one. And then if you want to bet Yadir Delville, watch those live odds. If you're able to sit there and bet live, you could bet a Yadir Delville at the end of the first round or partway through the first round and get him at a much greater price than you're getting on him now. So I'm going to say Isaac Dulgarian is the value side here. And he might even finish up Yadir Delville in round one because he's just that good. Not because Yadir Delville is bad. We saw Isaac Dulgarian even in that fight, against C-Rod. He was smashing him in round one. He was absolutely putting it on him. He obviously did death gas, but we've seen him fight back since then and, put himself in a more measured system. So I expect Isaac Dulgarian, the Midwest chopper, to come out here, get it done against Yadir Delville. If you're looking to play Yadir, wait until after round one. Live bet him because that's when he's got a chance in this fight, in my opinion. Then we have Jeremiah Wells taking on Themba Gorimbo. Guys, I'm not going to break this down from a technical standpoint because technically speaking, Themba Gorimbo has holes, Jeremiah Wells has holes. They both hit hard. I'm going to say it like this. This guy is 5'9". He's 39 years old. He has never impressed me. Timber Gorimbo is 6'1". He's got a reach advantage, and he fights a little cleaner. It's Timber Gorimbo here. And it's a closely lined fight, so I'm going to say that there is value on Timber Gorimbo, and I expect him to make good on his last loss against Vicente Luque by defeating an aging Jeremiah Wells here. And you might say, well, that's a terrible breakdown, BetSam. Well, guess what? That's what you're getting. So I'm going to say Timber Gorimbo wins this one. He is just the value side here for me. So I'm going to say Timber Gorimbo wins. And I honestly think he probably finishes Jeremiah Wells with straight shots down the middle, followed up by some ground and pound or a submission. I'm going to say Timber Gorimbo inside the distance. Then we have Waldo Cortez Aosta taking on Ante Delija, and I think it is pronounced Delija, but I want to say Delija so damn bad by reading it. But you know, like these names from Croatia or Poland, I'm always fucking them up, so it is what it is. Ante Delija taking on Waldo Cortez Aosta, Dominican Republic taking on Croatia. This is a banger. Ante Delija has only shown us a small snippet, at least inside of his UFC career, and that was him throwing combos and hands of danger, Sergey Pavlovich style, at Marcin Tybura until Marcin Tybura just crumbled. It was virtually one-way traffic the entire time outside of a 15 to 20 second grappling exchange where Marcin Tybura was leaning his fat body up against Ante Delija. So for the value here, you want to look at this and go, damn, Ante Delija's going to come out here as a marauder. He's probably going to knock out Waldo Cortez Aosta. Where I stop myself in that prediction is that Waldo Cortez Aosta, 14-2, never been finished. He literally just fought Sergey Pavlovich. And if you liked what you saw from Ante Delija, go watch what Sergey Pavlovich is capable of. I don't think that this 35-year-old Croatian could hold a candle to the power and devastating effect that Sergey Pavlovich has. And so for Waldo Cortez Aosta to be able to survive that, I expect him to be able to go out here and defeat Ante Delija, at least on the feet, with his experience and his knowledge and all the rest of it, and his speed. And I think that he's going to be able to pot shot jab Ante Delija as he's coming in on the inside, or have a step off left hand that connects on Ante Delija. I'm going to take Waldo Cortez Aosta here as an underdog at the time of recording to win this fight by knockout or decision. I like him here. It's a low confidence pick though, but I do have premium action on it. Then we have in the main event, Steve Garcia, Steve the Mean Machine, taking on David Onama. And this is a matchup that is, at first glance, you think, UFC Fight Night main event, I'm not so excited. Then you start doing tape for it and you go, Steve Garcia is a mean mother rucker. And David Onama as well. He has power and he is hittable. So I expect this is going to be fireworks. I think Steve Garcia is going to go out here and finish up David Onama. And I'll tell you why. Steve Garcia in his last matchup against Calvin Kattar had Calvin Kattar swinging airballs. I think he only had a 20% striking success or 30%. And Calvin Kattar is a much more measured, technical striker than David Onama. I don't think David Onama is going to be able to have an answer for the long-ranged attacks of Steve Garcia. And we see David Onama getting wobbled in all sorts of his fights. So I expect Steve Garcia's chin to hold up long enough for him to find David Onama's chin. And when Steve Garcia gets somebody hurt, he is absolutely goddamn relentless. So I'm going to take Steve Garcia to win inside the distance. However, if you think that David Onama is going to go out here and wrestle his ass off and maybe win a decision, you can get Steve Garcia win inside the distance, decision, no action, at a very similar price to both his money line and his win inside the distance condition. So I'm taking Steve Garcia here. I think he wins inside the distance. Official prediction is Steve Garcia to win by knockout. Guys, I want to thank you very much if you've made it to this part of the video. I appreciate each and every single one of you for watching. And if you could leave a comment for the algorithm, hit the like button, hit subscribe, it would genuinely mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for watching. And as always, let's make some money on Fight Night.